Our compare, Sukhda Pritam, who is a very senior district judge from the state of Haryana, has given me a lot of kudos for organization of the Lok Adalat. But a team leader can only be as good as the team which they command at their disposal and for the work. So much as I would like to take the credit for this amazing event which has taken place over the last few days since the 29th of July to the 3rd of August, I would like to recognize my team which has been at the forefront of these initiatives. And I would like to call out the names of my team which has worked tirelessly for the success of this Lok Adalat, and I'm sure you'll all join me in giving them a very handsome round of applause. So I'll call them out one by one. We have our Secretary General, Atul Kurekar. We have Registrar Judicials, Pavnesh and Puneet Segal. And look at the diversity of their experience. Atul is from the Maharashtra Judicial Service, Pavnesh from the very senior district judge from Karnataka High Judicial Service, Puneet likewise from the Judicial Service from Haryana, then Santosh from Jharkhand. It would have been not possible. Whole India's checks would not have been possible but for his own engagement with the Chairman and Managing Director over the last several years. Then we have Mr. Shashidhar Shetty, Registrar from, again, a very senior district judge from Karnataka, Mr. Ladekar, who is really the driving force. He is an ex-armed forces officer who is working in the judiciary, served the nation as an armed service officer and then joined the judiciary. And we have Sujata Singh, who is from the state of Uttarakhand, senior judicial officer. Then we have Satish Arora from the Delhi Higher Judicial Service. Colonel Marwa, again, Colonel, as you know, defines where he comes from. Mr. Soni, then a young officer from the Center for Research and Planning, Amarendra Kuntal Pathak from the state of Orissa, Parvinder Singh Arora from the state of Himachal Pradesh, Ashish Shiradhunkar, the scientist from NIC who is the backbone of the e-courts project, and Ms. Arunori from the state of Tamil Nadu who leads the. And finally, last but not the least, I very fondly refer to him as Tarzan because of he's all over the place even at 12 midnight, Mahesh Patankar, who looks after every little corner of our building and construction projects. So this has really been a multi-stakeholder cooperation. It couldn't have been possible without the tremendous support which I received from the entire team of registrars and officials in the Supreme Court, many of whom are not here really. Mr. Rakesh Sharma is probably overseeing the arrangement. There he is, Mr. Rakesh Sharma is there. Usually is always behind the scenes coordinating something or the other. Now, the reason why I thought I should mention all this is that I genuinely feel that the Supreme Court may be located in Delhi, but it is not the Supreme Court of Delhi. It's the Supreme Court of India. And since I took over the Office of the Chief Justice of India, we have made an effort to bring officers from all over the country into the registry of the Supreme Court. And they bring a great amount of diversity, inclusion, their knowledge about the life and society across India. Because our district judges have joined the judiciary very often. Some of them are, of course, direct appointees, but many of them have joined the judiciary at the lowest level, the civil judge junior division. The story goes, at least at one time, how do you identify a junior civil judge? At least at one time, no longer, because now the conditions of service have improved. If you see someone wearing a white pant, a white shirt, a black tie, a coat, and riding a cycle, they should be in the Indian judiciary in the villages. That's the true state, and that's why they are so deeply connected with our judiciary. And in the work which we did in trying to design this Lok Adalat, we had tremendous support at every little stage in the preparation. We received tremendous cooperation from the members of the Supreme Court Bar Association and SCORA, our own advocates who are our backbone in the Supreme Court and without whom nothing of this would have been successful. If the lawyers had stayed away, you can imagine there'd be no judge, or no courtroom, or no Lok Adalat without the lawyers. And all of them joined us in the Lok Adalat. When we constituted the panels for the Lok Adalat, we ensured that every panel would consist of 2 judges, in my case 3 judges, and 2 members of the bar. 1 senior advocate drawn from SCBA and 1 advocate drawn from SCORA. The purpose behind doing this was to give ownership to the advocates over the institute. Because this is not an institution which is only run by judges, and this is not an institution of the judges, for the judges, and by the judges. It was very interesting I think there was so much we learned from each other. We learned from the advocates about how much command they have over little procedural issues, which frankly I'm not very well versed with. On procedural issues, it's mostly the court masters and the registrars who tell us about little things like substitution of legal representatives. The lawyers were always conscious of the pitfall, and they would tell us, well, we need something more to effectuate this settlement. In a partition dispute where there may be multiple parties involving partition of agricultural land, there may be a danger if we accept the settlement as it stands today. We need to push it back by 2 days and get parties to ensure that there is a foolproof settlement. Likewise, the lawyers shared with us that we learned for the first time how much care judges devote to every little case which comes up before you. Last evening, we were involved in trying to resolve a matrimonial dispute, which finally didn't conclude in a settlement, but we hope it will conclude in a settlement on Monday. We were all together in my chamber finally till 6:30 in the evening, trying to talk to the wife, trying to talk to the husband, the little child whom they had brought to our chamber, so on and so forth. But the work of this Lok Adalat was also facilitated by the work which NALSA does, the National Legal Services Authorities. Last year in 2023, NALSA resolved as many as 8.1 crore cases. And therefore, we would like to acknowledge, of course, our Secretary of the NALSA, Santosh Nehiman, who is here. She is a very senior judicial officer from Delhi. Santosh, you can stand up. And this time we began with 7 benches. We were worried as to whether there will be enough work. You know, all this happens with a great deal of fanfare. Lok Adalats are like a marriage in a village, you know. It's like a fanfare. There's a lot of song and dance, and there's a lot of publicity. I was also asked to do a little video for Doordarshan, and I had to keep aside my judge's role and cap and my bands and, you know, talk like a person in front of the camera. But then at the end of it, you are really worried. Is this going to be successful? What if the lawyers just don't show up and say that we are not agreeable with what the Chief Justice is doing? And I was always worried about whether this would be successful. So we began with 7 benches. My registrar listing said, sir, 7 benches बनवाएंगे. उससे ज़्यादा बनाओगे और वो काम नहीं आएगा तो क्या करोगे? काम भी नहीं होगा, judicial काम भी नहीं होगा और लोक अदालत का भी काम नहीं होगा. But by Thursday, there was so much work which was coming in that we needed 13 benches to operate this Lok Adalat. On Wednesday evening, when the Secretary General, the registrars and I were in our usual evening confabulation, by the second they were receiving WhatsApp messages from the district legal services authorities across India. Matter has been settled. Please, the clients want the matter to be listed. Please list these matters. So this is an indicator also of the kind of infrastructure which we have in the Indian judiciary. Just like the civil services, we have very senior officers from the civil services who have come here, who have obviously risen from the ranks from their days as collectors now to secretaries to the government of India. Likewise, in the Indian judiciary, we have a very strong infrastructure in place. One thing which really impressed me throughout this Lok Adalat was the application of mind by the district legal services authority. They were on the video conferencing platform before us in every case. So when 201 was called out and right up to say 255 yesterday, all the DLSAs were personally present on the video conferencing platform. So we were marrying technology with the human relationship that the law brings to justice. And on the video conferencing platforms, we could see the parties present next to the district legal services authority. Of course, there were some funny moments also. In one case, some 10 lakhs of rupees in cash had to be paid to one of the parties. I hope the income tax authorities were not listening on to the conversation. And I didn't ask too many questions about whether the cash has been paid or when it is going to be paid. But the DLSA preempted me because he said, sir, ek aur cheez karni hai isme. And he picked up this red leather bag and handed over a bundle of cash to one of the parties, the agriculturists. But on a more serious note, the DLSAs did so much of rigorous work, hand-holding, because these settlements in the Supreme Court would not have been possible unless they were settlements with our citizens in the smallest villages and talukas. They bring small matters to the Supreme Court. Somebody's compassionate appointment, somebody's pension, somebody's ACP, somebody's, subsistence allowance during suspension, motor accident claim. In fact, a very senior secretary from the Government of India and a very distinguished former civil servant who were engaging with me last week said, sir, we never knew that the Supreme Court deals with such small cases because we are so used to looking at the Supreme Court as that court which is dealing with all these big ticket cases which get reported on the first page of the newspapers every morning. But what is lost to, I think, a lot of people is the kind of small work which we do in the Supreme Court. So many people ask me, why does the Supreme Court have to deal with such small cases? What is the purpose? Is this the purpose of the Supreme Court? And I always respond by saying that when the Constitution was framed by stalwarts like Dr. Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, they did it with a mission. They introduced Article 136 into the Constitution for the purpose that this was a court which was being set up in an essentially poor society, where there was an absence of access to justice. We operated in colonial structures of patriarchy, oppression, caste, discrimination. And the idea behind creating this institution, which would reach out to people, was to ensure that this would not be one of those courts like the American Supreme Court, which deals with 180 constitutional cases, but a court which would truly be a court reaching out to the lives of common citizens, and therefore, Nyay Sabke Dwar. That is the... And the purpose of our Lok Adalat has been truly to take justice to the homes of people, to ensure that we remind people that we are a constant presence in their life. I must in particular compliment my colleagues. Those who are at the forefront are all here. Justice Narasimha and Justice Vishwanathan were part of the coordinating committee together with our senior colleagues, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Justice Surya Khan, Justice B.R. Gavai. They would have been here. But another thing which is lost to civil society is that they feel that, well, judges get up at 4 o'clock in the evening and then there's nothing else to do. The work of a judge really begins at 4 o'clock in the evening. That's when we start the hard work for reading for the next day, preparing judgment. On the weekends, judges are traveling, reaching out to society, reaching out in legal aid camps, reaching out in colleges, reaching out to cases where people are involved in moments of distress. And all these colleagues are traveling, and they have communicated to me on a colleagues' WhatsApp group. I have a chat group of colleagues. I call it colleagues. We share experiences and ideas every morning. They've all reached out this morning to say that we wish we were here, but we wish the function all success. And therefore, I feel that this has been truly a collaborative effort. Justice Surya Khan, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, Justice Gavai, Justice Narasimha, Justice K.V. Vishwanathan. They reached out to 5 high courts each. I requested each of the senior colleagues, please distribute the 5 high courts between yourselves and talk to the Chief Justices. Constantly engage with them, because they must be told that the Supreme Court is very, very keen on this particular initiative. I thought before I end, I should just refer to a few instances of cases which were settled. A husband and wife who got married in 1998, within 5 months, disputes and differences arose between them, leading the wife to file for divorce in 2003. After multiple execution orders and prolonged litigation, settlements had been reached stipulating that the husband would provide a 20 lakh demand draft to the wife. Very often we feel that disputes can be resolved by payment of money, but how do you mend hearts by paying money? There's something more about mending hearts than paying money, which would allow her to withdraw all the civil and criminal cases pending against him. When inquiring about their current situation, I expressed satisfaction upon seeing the parties rather happy, because they had, in the course of the Lok Adalat, decided to bury their difference and they had come back together. And there was a petition for divorce which was filed by the husband in the Patiala House Court, and she had filed for maintenance. And I told her, ma'am, मैंने उनको पूछा कि आप ये सारे मामले हैं, इनको तो निरस्त करना पड़ेगा, आप लोगों को ये विड्रॉ करने पड़ेंगे मामले. तो she said, I've already done. And he said, अब मैं यहाँ से जाऊँगा पटियाला हाउस कोर्ट और मैं मेरा डिवोर्स का मामला भी विड्रॉ कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि हम साथ काफ़ी महीने से हम साथ हैं अब. और लोक अदालत में हमने बात की, दोनों ने लोक अदालत पैनल से, और हम साथ रहना चाहते हैं. And finally asked me, सर एक ही पूछना था आपको. So I said, जी कहिए, तो क्या कोर्ट कचहरी की, आपके कोर्ट कचहरी की फिर से चक्कर काटनी पड़ेगी मुझे? आई सेड नहीं, अब ये चक्कर आपको काटना नहीं पड़ेगा, हम इसको we'll give it legal form and now close the case. There's an MACT matter. In 2005, Mr. Alpesh Jashu Parekh was returning from Bhavnagar to Ahmedabad in a jeep car. A tractor attached with a trolley was parked on Shantipura Circle. The jeep driver, while trying to overtake the tractor, dashed the jeep with the tractor trolley, as a result of which the deceased was severely injured and admitted to hospital and ultimately died. The petitioner was the wife of the deceased. The disputed part was the income. ये motor accidents मामले जो होते हैं उसमें only the core of the dispute is तनख्वाह कितनी थी. How much was that person earning? Upon the claimed salary hike that the petitioner was seeking through the settlement, the initial increase so far would have been about 8 lakh. Although the petitioner was entitled to an increase of 8 lakh, she chose to settle for 5 lakhs in distress. This is also a problem which we see as judges. लोग इतना त्रस्त हो जाते हैं कोर्ट के मामलों से, वो कोई भी सेटलमेंट चाहते हैं, बस यहाँ से दूर करा दीजिए, कोर्ट से दूर करा। कोई महिला है वो सोचती है कि मुझे यहाँ से दूर जाना है। द प्रोसेस इज द पनिश, एंड दैट इज अ cause for concern for all of us as judges. So very often we say, no, we'll not allow this matter to be settled, because a settlement reflects the pre-existing inequalities in society. So as judges, we try and say that, well, we'll not settle it, and we'll try and get you a better outcome. So Justice Vikramnath, upon hearing the respondent's offer of only 1 lakh, Vikram said, I'm not going to accept this settlement. Ultimately, the bench, which was moved by the petitioner's plight, decided to award, with the consent of all parties, 6 lakhs as a lump sum in addition to what was previously awarded in the Lok Adalat. There was a young lawyer before me called Ishita Puranik, and Ishita said that there was a settlement in a matter. It was a 90% disability case, and in the course of the 90% disability case, a very small amount had been agreed upon as a settlement. That's also a problem of the Lok Adalats, where settlements are so small because you are conscious of the parties, that parties want to get out of the system. So she said, sir, you're the Chief Justice of India. I'm getting this much for this settlement. It's a 90% disability case. So we called upon the lawyer for the insurer, and he said, sir, wait a minute. A very senior general manager of the insurance company is running around from court to court because the insurance company has authorized her to speak to the judges and increase the amount of settlement. And when we put an additional amount, the insurer agreed right away. These are public sector insurance companies who also have a call of conscience to the name. And I thought I must acknowledge the fact that our insurance companies have done really, really well as part of this Lok Adalat. And right away, she agreed to this. Now, if that young lawyer had not mentioned it, it would have been a matter settled for whatever had been agreed upon in the district. There's another case. The petitioner was 19 years old in 2014 when he met with an accident and suffered 100% disability. And that tragic accident altered the life of a young petitioner at the time. The accident resulted in a grievous 100% disability, leaving him with an unimaginable challenge in life. Initially, the MACT awarded a sum of 36,68,000 as compensation, a decision that was later increased to 59 lakhs by the High Court in recognition of the severe impact on his life. Despite this substantial award, the petitioner contested various aspects of the compensation, including his monthly salary, the compensation for attendance, and the future medical expenses that he would incur. I remember in Mumbai when I was a young lawyer, there was a lawyer who was grievously injured in a motor accident. Every day he would come in a small vehicle which had been altered to suit his condition and try and carry on the pursuit of his career as a bar. So I remembered that when I was looking at this case. After considerable deliberation and amidst the emotional strain of ongoing legal battles, the Special Lok Adalat intervened to offer a final settlement. The settlement amounted to an additional 10 lakhs as a lump sum over and above the High Court's award. The amount, though not very significant, was a small relief in the face of overwhelming changes to his life, and both parties ultimately accepted the resolution. There was an MBBS student who died in a tragic accident in 2012. The MACT awarded 1.03 crores eventually. As a result of the Special Lok Adalat, the compensation was increased in a final settlement to 1.53 crores. The parents got 50 lakhs of rupees over and above what was. Another case, a petitioner was an old man who had suffered a 40% disability in a road accident. The MACT awarded 3.48 lakhs with 10% interest. The respondents had offered only 1 lakh additionally. In the Lok Adalat, they settled for about 5.5 lakhs in addition. There was a petitioner whose son was 17 years old who had died in a road accident. The father had an 85% disability and had only one son to look after the family. The MACT awarded 3.84 lakhs. The High Court had increased it to 7.86 lakhs, and eventually the Special Lok Adalat enhanced it by another 4 lakhs. In a lot of these cases, clients are not looking for a judgment at the end. As judges of the Supreme Court, we are so used to having to sit on that elevated dais. We have lawyers in front of us, and we are dealing with clients who are rarely before us, unlike in the High Courts or in the District Courts, so you see the face of the client. So, unlike that, in the Supreme Court, you don't see the face of the client. And the people for whom you render justice in the Supreme Court are, in that sense, invisible to us. That, I feel, is a little bit of a drawback of the work of the Supreme Court, but as experienced judges who have worked at the bar, as Justice Vishwanath and Justice Narasimha have, or judges like us who have grown up from the High Court now into the Supreme Court, we'd always try and remember the face behind the cause which comes to us. Because it is only when you understand the face behind the cause which comes to us that you realize that, in that sense, we are not distinct or separate from every person who is in the courtroom, whether it's a member of the bar, whether it's our court staff, whether it is the litigant. We are, in that sense, not distinct or separate from each other. We are all bound together as one human chain in this indefinable bond of humanity which defines our existence. And this Lok Adalat was just a reminder that though we are at the apex of the Indian judicial system, we are in that sense so closely and deeply associated with the lives of our citizens. I hope that we will now institutionalize this process of dispensing justice through Lok Adalats, because it's been one of my initiatives that whatever we do as a court must be institutionalized. It shouldn't be that just one-off initiative which is then forgotten for the future until 15 years later somebody else picks it up. We must ensure that it becomes part of our processes and system. Institutions are very slow to change, and I have realized that, because very often when I want to bring about a change, I have 10 different reasons which are given to me why this can't be done. And I always respond by saying, I'll give you one reason why it can be done. And so while institutions are very slow to change, the positive aspect of institution and administration of institutions is that once you bring about a change, it doesn't get lost forever. Then it becomes part of the system. So I think as lawyers, as judges, for all of us, the real challenge is how do we ensure that these are not just one-off initiatives, but they become part of institutional design. And bringing it a part of institutional design, making the bar as part of this initiative, I think is a huge change for the better. To send a message across that our lawyers and us are truly engaged in one endeavor. It's not that the lawyers are only engaged in earning money for themselves. Of course, they have to earn their livelihoods. Who denies that? Just as at the bottom of it all, we are here because we have to have a livelihood as judges as well. But there's something else that motivates us as judges, as lawyers. And what motivates us more as judges and lawyers is this cause of delivering justice to common. So I thank everyone who has been so closely involved in the preparation of this Lok Adalat, all these stakeholders who did tremendous work ranging from the state financial secretaries, the chief secretaries, the advocates general, the district legal services authorities, state legal service authorities, everyone across the spectrum, including my colleagues on all the men. Thank you very much.